BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform. Your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup breakdown, live odds, spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, the baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA, to even political props. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on the games of blackjack or poker, or how about over 150 slot games? There's a lot to choose from. Head to the website today. Get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online. The game starts here. Welcome to another edition of Bleav in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. Another home game, another division game for the 2-4 Giants. And Carl, it's a big one because you're already 0-2 in the division, but it's even bigger with the news this week that Andrew Thomas Lisfranc Frank surgery. He's out for the year. The Giants lose their best offensive lineman. And just when you thought, wow, this is like kind of uncharted territory, the Giants are starting the same five on the offensive line week in and week out. We haven't seen that in years. And now that's going to change with Andrew Thomas out for the years. They lose one of their captains as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, Bob. They're trying to keep as much of that group together. I know a lot of people were asking, well, now's the time for Evan Neal, and I know Evan is ready to get out there and play and show that he's up to the task. But it looks like they're doing some other reconfiguring of the offensive line that will keep him as the backup. I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the prevailing wisdom here is Josh Ezeudu, who happened to be a third-round pick in the same draft class as Evan Neal, will probably get the first shot at left tackle. And then they'll readjust from there. I do like the fact that you have an injury in one spot. When you start shuffling the whole deck around, why make other areas weaker?
Sure.
Let's just figure out the one spot. How can we protect that player? How can we help that player? And if it doesn't work, then back to the drawing board. Ezeudu struggled at that position last year. Remember the game in Miami where Daniel Jones, I thought, was going to be killed. Obviously, a new offensive line coach, Carmen Brasillo, has done a really nice job with this group, but it's going to be interesting. Now, it's not as if the Eagles have one of these dominant pass rushers that they've had in years past. There is no Hassan Reddick, and Bryce Huff, who they got from the Jets, has a grand total of a half sack, but it's a big challenge for this football team. You know, you lose Andrew Thomas, you get Nabers back, like you little yin and yang, but that's really what happens to every team in the NFL, Carl, is dealing with stuff like this.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing too, Bob. The Philadelphia Eagles look at film too. They do have a disruptor by the name of Jalen Carter over there. And I think he is probably looking at some of the success that Cincinnati had on the Giants' interior. And they're probably going to plan around that. So the Giants are going to have to shore up not just what they lost in terms of Andrew Thomas, but they're going to have to shore up where they were vulnerable a week before.
Nabers is coming back. He was feisty in practice the other day. The red jersey came off. You know, when you think about what the Giants are able to accomplish in Seattle, hopefully for Daniel Jones, with having Nabers back, it doesn't become sort of an automatic force feed, because it proved in Seattle when he wasn't playing that you can distribute the ball and there's other guys that are going to make plays for you.
Sure. I think he's going to get his fair share of targets, but to your point, the explosive plays were there against Seattle. I think with Nabers on the field against the Philadelphia Eagles, and given the status of their defensive backfield, he can facilitate for other players as well, because the resources they have in Philly on their back end, they're a little banged up too. So they're going to have to pay attention to Malik Nabers and take their chances with the other guys. And let's see what Coach Dable comes up with in terms of scheming those guys successfully open.
Carl, for Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin, even Cordell Flott, who's missed a lot of time in the early parts of his career, playing a lot better, and even Deonte Banks, who's in his second year. This really goes to show you, when people say, why isn't this guy as good in the pros as he was in college? Or why do guys in college wash out? Because the NFL is the NFL. And just think about, in the last 3 weeks, what this Giant defense in this secondary has had to deal with. And by the way, so far, in the 2 games prior, they've passed with pretty much flying colors. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, they had to deal with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Last week they had to deal with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This week they have to deal with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The hits just keep coming. For these young players, it's an eye-opener because there's no, homecoming games on an NFL schedule.
No, there aren't. And as you say, the hits keep coming. So, the old saying, the other guys get paid too, or the other guys got good players. Well, they're seeing that in that defensive backfield. They just keep coming and coming with all pros that they got to play against. And which leads me to my recurring theme of your best players have to be your best players, and your role players have to pay attention to detail, no matter who the competition is. That is the mandate for this team. If not, either side of the ball, you're not just good enough to overcome things. So you've got to pay attention to detail, and your best players have got to be your best players.
So we're recording this on a Friday morning, and, Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are a little banged up, limited in practice. Both players insisting that they're going to play. I guess I'm going to expect that they're going to play until otherwise noted. But we saw Azeez Ojulari last week take advantage of an opportunity. We've seen other guys take advantage of opportunities. DJ Davidson was very active in the game the other night. And this is going to be an opportunity again. They got to deal with Saquon Barkley, and this is going to be pretty emotional. It's going to be weird. I was talking to Coach Dable this morning, recording some stuff with him, and it's the NFL, right? And everybody that's been around the league, people change teams and free agents move on. But I got to be honest with you, it is going to be weird, at least during pregame warmups, to see him out on the field in his shorts and his T-shirt, maybe when he puts his Eagle gear on, to see him in a Philadelphia uniform. I've seen him in a Philadelphia uniform on TV, but until I actually see it in person, it's going to be bizarre.
It will be, because, for his career up until this offseason, he was identified as kind of the New York Giant, the face of the Giants. And so now he's gone, and it's going to be weird, but I think those, sentiments will quickly dissipate as soon as that ball is kicked off, because listen, the Giants, they need a win. And in order to get that win, they're going to have to stop Saquon Barkley. They're going to have to limit Saquon Barkley. And because the threat of Jalen Hurts, which, he hasn't run a lot this year. Only, I think he kind of ripped the top off a little bit against the Saints. But what he's probably, or what they're probably looking at, are 2 teams that had a lot of success against the Giants with their quarterback ripping off a chunk play because they caught him in man-to-man defense. And then last week, the pass rush was unbalanced, and it never got balanced up, and it left a big gaping hole. So That's something the Giants are going to have to guard against. You might see some more RPO from Jalen Hurts because, he wants to be, I'm sure, as big of a threat as possible against this Giant defense. Also, they need to do something to keep them off kilter.
Jalen Hurts is interesting, right? Since the start of last season, Carl, there is no player that has turned the ball over more than him. He has 27 giveaways since the start of last year, which is the most in the NFL. And his last 3 regular season starts against the Giants, he's accounted for a total of 3 touchdowns with 4 giveaways and a passer rating of 55.6. Last year they got after him pretty good. That was with Wink as the DC. Shane Bowen does it a little bit differently, but is able to generate pressures and stuff like that. And I think they got to kind of keep the heat on him, don't you think?
You do, but it's got to be balanced. He's not a guy who panics when the rush comes at him. He's, even if he's watching the rush, he's looking for escape, and he can dance around back there. And the thing that should concern a lot of people is that when he starts scrambling, whoever your coverage assignment is, do not leave that and become a spectator, because whatever his interception ratio is, Bob, they get explosive plays every single game. That's a fact.
They have 7 pass plays of over 30 yards. 2 have gone for touchdowns, whether it's a tight end, Goddard, who's banged up, but he's got some big splash plays, and then obviously Brown and Devontae Smith. Going back to the Saquon thing really quickly, I'm going to steal a line from The Godfather, okay? When Michael Corleone and his brother are talking, and they're like, this isn't personal, and you're getting too personal. And Michael Corleone says, it's not personal, it's business. And I know there's a lot of fan anger towards Saquon Barkley that he left, but it's just business.
Yeah.
They made him legitimate contract offers. He wanted more money. They couldn't come to an agreement, and that's business in the NFL today. But I just want to, so some fans will boo him, and that's their right. And then other fans, I'm sure, will stand up and cheer at the beginning of the game, because he is the Giants' 4th all-time leading rusher, only 89 yards behind Joe Morris. He's tied with Rodney Hampton for the 3rd most 100-yard rushing games with 17. Only Morris with 19 and Tiki with 38 have more. And he's 8th in franchise history in scrimmage yards. And you and I both know Saquon. And the one thing that he never did, he never made like business decisions. He played hard. He gave his body to the Giants. And as a fan, that's all you can ask for. It's not his fault that he was on some really bad teams with bad offensive lines and not good receivers and everything else.
Right.
He gave his effort. He tried as best as he could. And, he got injured a couple times or whatever. But, my personal feelings are, hey, look, he wanted the money. He got the money. Good for him.
Good for him. Yes.
And, I'll always remember him for the good things that he did as a Giant. I hope he has one of those 15 carry, 16-yard games that he's had to in the past. But I wish him nothing but the best moving forward.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'll see him hopefully before the game, give him a hug, and then tell him I hope he has a horrible game. But I love the kid, just not Sunday. And listen, I'm okay with fans booing. I mean, he's the enemy in your territory right now. I know that every one of those fans that booed appreciated him when he was a Giant, but he's no longer a Giant, and they get to boo because he's on the opposing team, and that's totally fine. And I think they should be loud. They should be loud, and that's not a hate thing. That's a competitive thing now. I mean, this is where the fandom comes out at. And like I said, I'm going to give him a hug and tell him I hope he has a horrible game. Hope he stays safe, but has a horrible game.
Yeah. Don't get hurt, but I hope you struggle. I hope you got Dexter Lawrence in your face all day.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we always talk about get right games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to hit you with some stuff. And I don't want to see Philadelphia get right. Did you know that the Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in the NFL that have not scored a single point in the first quarter this year? That's why, first of all, that's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe.
And on their 5 opening drives this year, they have 4 punts and an interception. Remember, they've only played 5 games because they've already had their bye. And on those 5 opening drives, they have 1 first down. They have a grand total of 22 yards. And on third downs, they're 0 for 5. So one of the third downs was a pick, and then the others were punts. They have 1 first down.
Giants
that came on a first down play.
They take that for a few quarters, right?
So let's not let them get right. The other thing is, when you think about their weapons and everything else, Carl, do you know the Eagles are tied with the Giants for 25th in red zone efficiency? 44.4% as far as touchdowns per trips. The Giants have 8 touchdowns and 18 trips. And the Eagles have 8 touchdowns in 18 trips. Don't let them get right. And both teams, the Eagles are 5th in red zone defense. The Giants are 6th in red zone defense. So let's not let those numbers change as far as the Eagles are concerned.
Well, and then when there are opportunities to score outside of the red zone, meaning your chunk plays, get the ball on target and players catch them, and that kind of solves a little bit of that angst as well.
Carl, did you get your shot this morning?
Right here, buddy.
You got the pouch. So you're wondering what this is, right? This stuff is called Cherubundy. Now, it's tart cherry, which has the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. Natural products, no sugar added. Helps with anti-inflammatory, reduce soreness, increase recovery, support your immune system. And I took your tip, Carl. Instead of just drinking it in the morning, I started drinking it in the evening. And I noticed that,
don't you?
Yeah, definitely sleep a lot better. Now, over 500 college and professional teams have this in their facility, including every NFL team, 10 of the last Super Bowl champions. I like the tart cherry. I like the little bottle of it. You prefer the shot, right? You like the shot a little bit better. So where do you get it? Well, go to Amazon, where you can get everything else in the world, or go to cherubundy.com. Or if you live in parts of the world that have Publix and Kroger's, go in there and they have it as well. Cherubundy. You know what? I was going morning, but now I might do it in the morning, and then I'll take one in the evening, early in the evening, like an hour or 2 before I go to bed.
So pro tip. Because we both have the lifestyle that we have where we're doing a ton of things. Sleep is important because you're an early riser, I'm an early riser. Whatever the hours are that we get, if it's 4, if it's 5, if it's 6, we want them to be the best 6 hours, the best 4 hours, the best 5. This is what will do it for you.
Yeah. I'm all in on my Cherubundy, that's for sure. Now, Carl, I did a little deep dive. Do you want to ride along with me on this?
Sure.
So I don't know. You and I have been very pro Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones was not good last week. Missed so many open throws and all the other stuff. And I'm trying to figure it out. I can't, because there's something, and I was racking my brain trying to figure out what is it that has Carl Banks and Bob Papa behind the guy. Not just because he plays for the Giants, obviously, because if he plays well, the team does well. So he has no touchdown passes and 4 interceptions at home. He has 6 touchdown passes and no interceptions on the road. So I did this little deep dive, and I ran it by some people that have coached in the league on the offensive side of the ball. And I started it with, when you're analyzing a quarterback, what are you looking for as far as touchdown to interception ratio? And they said 3-1 is really good play. And then you get the 3.5 to 4-1 superstar stuff. So I looked at quarterbacks that have struggled in recent years, who are high draft picks that have significant playing time. Mitchell Trubisky, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, right? All guys that were taken high that have not really panned out. So let me read you these numbers. Daniel Jones has played the exact amount of road games as he has home games. He's 12, 20, and 1 at home. He has a completion percentage of 64%. He's thrown for 6,776 yards. He's thrown 27 touchdowns, 30 interceptions at home with 105 sacks and a passer rating of 77.9. On the road, same amount of games, he's 12 and 21. But he's completed 65% on the road. He's thrown for 7,079 yards. He's only been sacked 88 times as opposed to 105. And here's where it gets weird. He's one pass away from that offensive coordinator dream of a 3-1 ratio. On the road, he has 41 touchdown passes and 14 interceptions with a passer rating of 91.8. Now, I went and I looked because I asked a guy who's a former head coach in the NFL and a very successful play caller and offensive coordinator. And when I hit him with these numbers, he was like, you got to check that again. That can't be right. Normally, so I looked at all guys who are like struggling in their careers, who have moved on to other teams. Every one of these guys, except Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence, are on to their next teams already because they didn't pan out. Only Kyler Murray has a passer rating of over 90 on the road of any of these guys. And every one of these guys, like Kyler Murray, he's close. He's at 49 touchdowns, 17 interceptions on the road. So he's 2 away from a 3-1 on the road, and he has a passer rating of 94. But Trevor Lawrence's numbers on the road are worse. Zach Wilson's numbers on the road were awful, 53%, 7 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Fields' road passer rating is 81. Sam Darnold's passer rating is like 80. Mayfield, 62%. He's not even at 2-1 touchdowns to interceptions on the road. Trubisky, not even close to 2-1, almost 1-1. Trevor Lawrence, 36 touchdowns, 27. This is the damnedest thing. So then I asked a couple of former players that played the position, and they said they have never seen anything like it, where a guy's splits are that drastic between home and away. Normally at home, it's better. But 41 and 14 with a passer rating of 92, 91.8, 92, like that's winning stuff. Now, he doesn't have a winning record,
right?
But that's a function of a lot of other things, bad defenses and you name it. But have you ever seen anything like that?
41 touchdowns and 14 interceptions on the road, and it's practically upside down at home.
It's worse than upside down. I mean, he's 27 touchdowns, 30 interceptions at home, and a passer rating of 77.
Yeah.
It blows me away. I've never seen anything like it. And I looked at all these guys.
Listen, they got to get it figured out at home this Sunday. That's what's happening right now. That's what needs to happen. Figure it out this Sunday. Again, just like last week, this giant crowd was all in until they weren't. And the key here is to keep them all in. And that's both sides of the football. But your best players have to be your best players. your role players have to be attention to detail. And everybody has a role. So at some point, everybody is a role player. But your best players, they do what they do, and they have to do it against best competition. The role players are your young players who can't lose their receiver because a quarterback is scrambling. Your role player is a quarterback who's leading a drive successfully down the field and makes a bad decision that takes points away from your team. These are roles that everybody has to play. And the quarterback has to do his job and make sure that when they get these opportunities, they can capitalize on them and not self-inflict or self-mutilate.
How do they help Josh Azudu in this game, in your opinion?
Well, they can move the quarterback. They're going to keep a tight end over there. I'm sure he's going to see a lot of Brandon Graham, because Brandon Graham is their best, most active pass rusher. And I think also what helps them, and I don't sit in game plan meetings, but I know one thing that'll help any offensive lineman, you let him get you let him sink his teeth into some red meat, let him run the ball a little bit, let him run block a little bit, and that kind of takes the pressure off when you want to do some other things. But if you come out and you go just slinging it all over the yard, you better make sure you got him some help over there. Because just, starting off and he hadn't played this regular season, you might want to make sure you give him some help if your plan is to go out and just sling it. If they believe that there is something there that warrants them passing the football, far be it from me to say they shouldn't. They just have to make sure the kid gets some help so that he can hold up.
Yeah, and the quarterback's got to hit the layups, right? Got to hit. You can't miss the layups. You can't miss the open throws on a first down or whatever where you're staying on schedule,
Yeah.
And that's been another problem at home.
Yeah, well, the other thing too, Bob, what I don't want to see from Daniel Jones is him trying to guide the football again. I said it early. I'll keep saying it to him. Stay fucking fearless. You're gonna have to hit him, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try them. Don't feel like, oh, I may overthrow this, so let me lob it up. No, just do what a quarterback does and just make those plays. But you cannot be apprehensive in this situation with him. They're giving him plays that work. He's just got to hit them, and don't be apprehensive. Stay fucking fearless. That's what you got to do. And just make the plays.
Yeah, because let's face it, the clock's ticking, right? The Giants are 29th in the NFL in points per game. They average 16 points per game. You can't win when you average 9.3 at home.
Right.
And 22.6 on the road. Like it's 22.6 on the road. You should be a winning team averaging 22.6 on the road.
Sure.
But the 9.3 at home, it's not digestible.
You're not even double digits at home. That is not digestible.
No, and defensively, the Giants have held their part. Officially, they're 9th in the NFL in points per game allowed, 20.2. But for some reason, and no one from Elias will listen to me, why is it they're giving up 20.2 points per game when 14 of those have been returns for touchdowns by the opposing defense? Defensively,
right.
The Giants are giving up 17.8 a game because you got the pick six by Van Ginkel, and then you have the Rashawn Jenkins 102-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Defensively, they're only giving up 17.8 points per game. That should have you a winning record.
It should. They got to get another win, get this thing to 500 and just keep climbing, Bob. But it's one game at a time. It's one play at a time. It is the details that matter when you are a team that has a losing record, but you have good players when you peel back the layers, it's normally the details that get missed, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. And, the story is simple. I think they have a good personnel. I think they have good play callers. It's not like it's a hopeless offensive situation where you said, what are they calling? I mean, clearly, if you're missing open chunk plays, then they're calling the right type of plays. You just got to execute, and it's details. Losing teams normally don't pay attention to detail, and that's or they miss them in crucial moments, and that's where the Giants are right now, and they've got to clean it up.
Yep. This is not the first half of the year version of the Eagles or the 22 version of the Eagles that made it to the Super Bowl and had a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl. This is a different team. And they can't worry about any of that other stuff other than go out and take care of their business. You got anything else to add to this?
Nope. That's all I got.
This is all I got, my cherubundi. All right. We'll do a recap next week. How do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Bleav in Giants.